My name's Will, and I'm dead. I know it's sad, but hey, a lot of awesome people are dead. It happens.
And who knows? After long work and dedication in the long run.
What long run? In the long run, we're all dead. I'm not gonna die. You see, I'm into this thing where if I get sick, real sick, where I'm about to go, they just take me away and freeze me.
Although he is certain to die, perhaps from a household accident, which account for 65% of all unnatural deaths.
All right, we did not die today. I call that an unqualified success.
You're all gonna die. What's wrong with it?
I'm dying too.
You're going to die.
Prepare to die.
Death is full of surprises, huh?
You have no idea.
Welcome to Mortality Movies. I'm Gail Rubin, your host, the doyen of death. That's death, not deaf. A doyen is a woman who's considered senior in a group who knows a lot about a particular subject, and that would be me when it comes to the party no one wants to plan. And I am joined by two Albuquerque area death educators, Danielle Slupeski, death doula, and Jane Westbrook, death educator. We are here to talk about mortality and movies. You will remember the information in a video 30% more than you will remember anything a speaker tells you. So we are going to watch film clips related to death, grief, funerals, and end-of-life issues, and talk about some of the issues that those clips raise in terms of our thinking about death and hopefully doing something about planning ahead for our 100% mortality rate. If you're watching this program on YouTube, the film clips will be separate from the program, but you can access them in the links in the description box for the video. So, are we ready to talk about discussing death won't kill you? So many people don't want to talk about death. I mean, even though we all die, less than 30% of adults do any end-of-life planning. And that's going to leave 70% or more of our loved ones scrambling to pull together information and make expensive decisions under duress of grief. And you guys have probably seen it. And it doesn't have to be that way. So, our film clips for this episode are going to focus on ways we can break down that resistance to talking about death. Our first clip is coming from the film Patch Adams in 1998. Robin Williams plays the real-life Patch Adams. He's a doctor who believed in the healing power of humor. And in this scene, he is talking to a patient who has pancreatic cancer and giving him a look at coming attractions. Euphemisms for death. We're so full of that in our conversations. You know, people don't want to say death. And in this clip, the patient didn't want to admit that he was going to die. And that's why he was there reading all of those euphemisms. What do you think is a good way to get people to admit the D word?
Oof. We're constantly working on that, aren't we?
Yes.
This one hits really close to home for me because I specifically have chosen to use the title Death Doula as opposed to End-of-Life Doula or Sacred Passage Doula or all of these other soul midwife, these beautiful kind of fluffy terms. We die, right? Death is the word. Death is what happens. And so it's interesting to me that even the National End-of-Life Doula Association, right, like Alliance, they use end of life, you know, and it's like, can we, if in our own group we can't say the word, how do we expect clients and the rest of the population to use it?
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was teaching a class at Oasis, and I had this lady who was an English professor in it, and she said, death has more euphemisms than any other word in the English language.
Really? Well, I'm not surprised.
Yeah, so we're always trying to avoid that. And when I start my classes, I teach this 8-week class, and the first week I say, we're going to talk about dead, we're going to talk about death, we're going to talk about dying, we're not going to use the euphemisms. And people drop right into that very quickly in that kind of setting. In a more personal setting, not so much. Sometimes it's harder for them to make that move, and they'll use some other phrase.
Yeah, it's I find in my work with people that even then, and I tell them ahead of time, I don't want this to come across as harsh, or I'm not trying to be insensitive, but I'm going to use the right words when we talk. And I do that throughout. I think it's really important, especially when we're talking like with medical aid and dying clients, because I want to be very clear. When we do this, the end result is death, right? It's not sleeping, passing away, passing, yes, exactly. Death.
Wow.
Maybe it's the same thing as when we're doing sex education for kids. It's very important to use the right words. And if we don't use the right words, there's problems that are going to come up. So it's the same thing in the death work, is that we need to say it. We need to talk about it, and then maybe people can look at it a little differently.
Oh, I agree, especially with kids.
Yes.
Right? Because when we use these euphemisms with children that don't have the ability for abstract thinking, you say something like, Grandpa's in heaven. Well, why can't we go visit him?
Yeah.
Well, let's go to heaven then.
Went to sleep.
Yes.
Then they're going to be terrified of going to sleep.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right. The dirt nap. I don't think they said that one. The next clip, we're going to look at 2 clips from the Mary Tyler Moore Show in 1975, the Chuckles Bites the Dust episode. This episode, if you need to have a conversation with your family about planning for a funeral, watch Chuckles Bites the Dust. You will laugh very heartily. And as you will see, it will open the door to have a conversation about death and funeral planning. So if you remember, Mary Tyler Moore works at a television station in the newsroom. And there's a clown called Chuckles who works at the station. He plays various characters like Mr. Fee-Fi-Fo and Mrs. Aunt Yoo-Hoo. Well, he also has a character called Peter Peanut, and the circus comes to town. He's dressed as Peter Peanut, leading the parade, and an elephant decides he wants a snack. And that is how Chuckles bites the dust. So here we are in the newsroom at the TV station as Mr. Grant talks with Murray and Ted Baxter about Chuckles and the whole concept of why do we laugh about death? Do you know who said, "No man is an island, and that's not for whom the bell tolls, it tolls for thee"? John Donne from the 1600s. Wow. And in fact, in Wit, which we will be looking at in another episode, the woman who has the cancer is an expert in the poetry of John Donne. So yes, ask not for whom the bell tolls, it tolls for thee. So Mr. Grant has explained, but you guys didn't see, but we were laughing uproariously while we were watching this clip. You cannot help but laugh looking at this, which is why this particular episode, if you can find it and stream it or get it on DVD, is such a great way of getting the conversation started about death. Now, to go on with Mary Tyler Moore in this episode. Mary is taking Chuckles' death very seriously, and the whole funeral planning about putting together a nice memorial service for Chuckles, while everybody else is still laughing behind her back. And she gets very righteous about that until the funeral. So let's watch this very famous scene from the Mary Tyler Moore Show, Chuckles Bites the Dust, Chuckles' funeral. I love that last scene where they talk about what they want, because you've just spent the past 30 minutes laughing uproariously and just getting those relaxing endorphins into your system. And then they talk about cremation, freezing, burial. Lou Grant's, you can't be just put out with the trash. But a lot of guys say that, don't they? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to fuss.
Yeah.
We hear that a lot.
And in fact, the funeral is for the people who are left.
Yeah, and I think what came up for me watching that is that the emotions are unpredictable.
Well,
right?
Laughter and tears, you're going to get that at a funeral.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And this idea that some emotions are acceptable at some times and not at others, and that's just not reality. It's just not true. There's been lots of laughter around deathbed space and deathbed vigils and funerals and memorials. And so I think creating a space where all emotions are okay and acceptable, it should be the goal when we're working in this space, because they all come up.
Yeah.
And everybody has such a wide range of options. And when they start really examining that, they can have a grand time putting it together. What do we want to do after our death? What do we want done with our body? My personal favorite is my own. I want to be cremated and put in do you know what a pumpkin chunker is?
Oh yeah, it's like
it's a catapult. Where they see how far they can throw a pumpkin.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's what I want.
Put your
my
ashes in the pumpkin.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I want to be chunked as far as I can go. So, have some fun with it.
Yeah.
And I have a nephew who has one, so it's going to be handy.
All right.
Yeah.
I'll be there whenever
it
happens. Okay.
Yeah, so just, have some fun with this
Yeah.
and think about the different options. There's hundreds.
Well, and new things have come online: alkaline hydrolysis, water cremation, natural organic reduction, which is body composting.
Yeah.
We can't get that in New Mexico, but there are a handful of states where you can get that currently.
Well, and if you go with something like cremation, then now there are tons of different options of what to do with the cremains.
Yes.
We have Parting Stone just here in Santa Fe, where you can turn your cremains into little stones.
Into a nice, and or donate your body to science. And that's a free disposition.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of people don't know about these things. The next clip is from Coco, the animated feature from 2017 about Day of the Dead. And this is a lovely little clip about the importance of remembering our ancestors. This is such a wonderful reminder of remembering our ancestors, and Day of the Dead, Dia de los Muertos, which we celebrate quite a bit here in the Southwest, is a great acknowledgement that, yes, there are those who have gone before us, and we should remember them. And that's, of course, the refrain of the big song in Coco. But yeah, definitely check Coco out in terms of just making sure that we remember our dead. Yeah.
And they are with us always. That's the thing. I've done memorial services, and the thing that I like to do in a memorial service is talk about that as the everlasting life, is the impact that we had, that people who have died have on the people that are left behind. And that's what Coco does. That's what the Day of the Dead is about. That imprint is always there.
You know, and I find it to be really helpful for people in their grief process, you know, to set up a small ofrenda or altar or, you know, memorial space in their home with photos of their loved one, maybe a candle you light here and there, or, you know, you switch out items, but it's that way of honoring continuously throughout the year can be really helpful.
I have a year-round ofrenda in my living room
beautiful.
with all my family and friends who have gone before. I want to end this session with this is actually a humorous ad that ran online from the Mount Pleasant group in Toronto. So yes, we can't predict when any of us are going to go, so plan ahead while we're healthy and happy and able to communicate with our loved ones. So let me encourage you to go out and plan your final arrangements right now before the quit bit goes off. As we close, you'll notice a collection of film clips. We had a collection of film clips to open the program. So if you can identify all of the films and TV shows these clips come from and email me at gail@agoodgoodbye.com your list, you can win a t-shirt that says, talking about sex won't make you pregnant, talking about funerals won't make you dead. So let's start a conversation today.
Hey, I'm going to buy you these books, I think, because I think you should read them, you know, instead of that cat book.
That's pretty serious stuff there.
Yeah, because I'm obsessed with death, I think. It's a big subject with me, yeah.
Death, to die, to expire, to pass on, to perish, to peg out, to push up daisies, to push up posies, to become extinct, curtains, deceased, demised, departed, and defunct.
I'm watching Cocoon. The spaceship is taking the old people into space. That's the happy ending for old people.
If only were that easy, huh?
Yeah, I remember seeing this in the theater 30 years ago. But it's a whole different thing when you're in the demographic.
So bad.
It's like a Black Mirror.
So bad.
Yeah, it is. Well, I think it looks like death.
David,
it looks like mourning. I mean, it looks...
Every movie in every cinema is about death. Death sells.